So here we go again. This is actually my third attempt at making this video. The first attempt, hence the red lighting, was actually an AMD-centric video. I was looking at doing something that analyzed the upcoming Mendocino, Phoenix, and Dragon Range products coming to laptops from AMD at the end and early next year. But honestly, some of my sources, as I was finishing up the notes, pointed some things out to me. One of them literally said, "Why do you care about Mendocino? This thing is boring." He's kind of right. I mean, overall, a lot has already been leaked about Mendocino, like a ton actually, and Dragon Range. And although I feel like the Phoenix info is definitely a mixed bag in terms of accuracy, it would be hard to call that video a leak when half of it is basically just me pointing out this is correct, that's not. But I do still plan to do that video. It's just something else has come up. But before I move on to that other thing that really ballooned into a giant set of new information for you all, I do want to get a couple things on record about Mendocino, Phoenix, and Dragon Range. So first of all, Raphael coming to AM5 later this year. That has just 2 compute units, 1 workgroup, and I'm told it's clocked around 2.2 gigahertz. Honestly, at those clock speeds, I would expect this thing to be, I don't know, a little better than a Nintendo Switch. Maybe we're getting into like the low-end cards from, honestly, about a decade ago. So probably better than like Skylake integrated graphics and such, but definitely not that great. And it will be clocked lower in Mendocino, that I'm also confirming is indeed just 1 workgroup. Now, I do think that Mendocino's maybe being a little overhyped for really what it will be used for, but there are a couple of interesting things I'll cover in the upcoming video that are overlooked. They're just not really worth dwelling on here. And then the last thing that I will say about Phoenix is pretty much what I've been saying in Broken Silicons and videos up until now. It's incredibly efficient. It is just, though, more comparable to Rembrandt than some kind of a revolution, at least in terms of raw performance. It might have a few tricks up its sleeve that other people aren't talking about, but in terms of actual performance, it's about the efficiency, just like Rembrandt. Rembrandt brought a big graphics performance increase over Cezanne, but it didn't like triple performance. In fact, it's on average less than double. That's what you should expect out of the graphics performance of Phoenix, to bring basically something that, depending on if you're talking about the CPU or GPU, is like 30 to 80% better overall, but in a similar package. And it's going to be really hard for Raptor Lake Mobile to compete with that, I think, which, yeah, that means we can start transitioning into the main subjects for this video. You see, that video I was going to do about AMD's mobility products, I didn't feel like it would be fitting unless, like I do in most of my videos, I put some kind of a look at the competition as well. These things don't exist in a vacuum. I wanted to have at the beginning of the video a blurb that put in the back of everyone's minds, what is Meteor Lake going to be like? Where is Raptor Lake going to be? Just so you guys know, oh, when Phoenix comes out, this is when its competition will launch. And the stuff I heard about launch dates, about upcoming Intel products, honestly just started to make me dig super hard on Intel stuff. And look, let me be clear about this right here. Some of the things I'm hearing about upcoming Intel products, as I've already alluded to in previous videos, sounds incredible. Intel is working on some very ambitious projects that would crush the competition if they launched at the right time. That's the thing then, right? Delays can kill great products, and it's not just because they're coming out later so their competition gets the drop on you. But if things come out 1 gen to 2 gens fully too late, you run into this issue where you're fighting the last war. So, for example, Zen 4 is, well, it was truly meant to come out at the very end of 2021. AMD has said this publicly, and now it's coming out fall of 2022. And that would be a huge problem for AMD if they were contending with a Raptor Lake that had already launched this summer before Zen 4 launched this fall, and they also knew that Meteor Lake was coming on a smaller node at the very beginning of 2023. At that point, they would be fighting products they probably didn't initially think they would have to fight with this architecture, but that's just not what's going to happen. At the end of the day, Zen 4 is mostly competing with the product it was meant to, and even if it was mostly meant to fight Alder Lake, Raptor Lake's made on the same node, so it's not like as much of a leap as like Alder Lake was over Rocket or Comet Lake. You see, AMD isn't stuck fighting the last war. They designed a product to compete with 10 nanometer high performance Intel CPUs, and that is what Zen 4 is going to compete with. But the problem is this: if you have a product that Intel's designing that was always meant to compete with Zen 4, and then it slips a little bit, and then you go, okay, well, now I guess it's competing with Zen 4 with Vcache, which, remember, I've confirmed could be coming as early as mid-next year. You go, okay, well, that's not good. But then if something slips to Zen 5, or after Zen 5, you start going, okay, but here's the thing. It's not just that now you don't have the performance advantage you thought you'd have. You have a product that you've positioned against something it's not competing with anymore, and you have no idea what you're going to have to deal with. For all you know, you could be fighting an entirely outdated form of combat. That's the idea of saying you're fighting the last war. It's not just that you're behind the curve, it's that you're behind the curve and you're using the wrong weapons. That is what I'm starting to be worried about when it comes to Intel's upcoming products and their just complete befuddling over and over failure to launch things when they say they're going to launch things. And, you know, the funny thing is, as luck would have it, this video was actually supposed to come out last night, but then YouTube didn't have audio on some platforms, and it was locked to 360p on others and 480p on others, and I thought this video was just too important to rush out in the middle of the night, and then if I'm going to delay it until the next day, because there's no point in trying to redo it and getting it out at midnight, then I might as well also re-record it and see if I can add any new information. And I've got a few little tweaks to it to anyone who saw the first 5 minutes of the last video before I pulled it. So it's quite funny that this video started as an AMD video that became an Intel video, and then like all Intel products, it was delayed, just like Alchemist. But yep, that's what I'm going to talk about today. The incredible performance that might be incredibly late coming from Intel over the next few years. But first, an ad from a sponsor. This summer, whether you're getting exercise outside or finding ways to stay active indoors like me, it's always nice to have something around that acts as a quick and tasty meal that's also healthy, full of protein, and reasonably priced. For me, that's Vite Ramen, who is a sponsor of this piece of content. Vite Ramen is an American company that pays its workers fair wages and crafts a protein and nutrient-dense meal that takes minutes to make without sacrificing taste. In fact, it's even quicker now with Ramen Go, a product that offers the same calories and taste as their traditional V3 packages you're probably used to now if you're a follower of this channel, while allowing you to even more quickly make your food or bring it to work for lunch. And they keep updating their recipes, like the new V3 edition of beef pho, so you keep having fun new flavors to try. Click the link in the description and use the offer code BROKENSILICON to save 10% off a variety of different special bundles just for Moore's Law Set fans that include things like spoons, chopsticks, and more if you so choose. This is a great deal for you, and it helps support this channel tremendously. Seriously, I eat it. It's tasty, it's healthy, it's fast. They keep making even better and better recipes that are quicker and quicker to make, and it's reasonably priced. Try Vite Ramen today. All right, I already did the intro. No more waffling around. Let us get into the information. And the first thing I want to talk about is actually just a brief mention of Fishhawk Falls. Now, of course, I really recommend you watch my recent video that broke the bombshell information that what Intel is calling mainstream workstation may be more HEDT-like than people expect, with a monolithic 24 Golden Cove core product that could have more reasonable pricing than some of their more insane-looking Sapphire Rapids 56 core stuff. Go watch that video for the pegs on release date, estimated pricing, and performance. What I will say in this video is that more sources than just the few of my best initial ones are starting to get briefed on Fishhawk Falls, and in the context of this video, that's very important, as I am losing a lot of confidence in Intel's ability to launch anything at all, really, if even on time. And so the fact that I'm hearing that it's coming soon makes me think, okay, so this is then probably still coming this year. I wouldn't double down on Q3 still because it's Intel, but it could be. It sounds like it is coming soon, and depending on what happens to Raptor Lake, that might be really important, as this could be the de facto Zen 4 competitor that, if priced right, could actually offer a great alternative to a lot of people that want a more HEDT-like system. But now let's move to the main subject of this slide, Raptor Lake. So I'm just recapping some stuff here first. The i9, as I leaked almost a year ago, is 8 plus 16. That's 8 big cores, 16 little cores. The i7 will be 8 plus 8, so the same core count as the existing i9s. The i5K will be 6 plus 8, which I think is going to be incredible for mid-range builds. And then, I'm not 100% on this one, although I know other people have said it, but just me, myself, I am mostly sure that the i5 non-Ks are 6 plus 4, which is really actually quite a big deal when you consider these go below $200. And then the i3 is still just 4 cores, 8 threads, no little cores, which at first seemed a little disappointing when I heard about this, but honestly, AMD hasn't launched like a low-end good R3 product for years, so I don't really see how this won't be able to compete if it's basically just Alder Lake plus 10% performance. That's already something AMD is basically not competing with before you add that 10%. But anyways, let me continue. So Raptor Lake comes with a minor IPC increase over Golden Cove in most applications, although I do think a few will get decent performance per clock benefits. But you guys got to think of this as similar to Willow Cove over Sunny Cove. I just barely stopped myself from putting an IPC number on here. I do suspect that in a lot of applications, guys, it's going to be less than 5% in all honesty. But I think in other applications it will be more. And again, just remember what Willow Cove in Tiger Lake was like. You know, there was the average claimed IPC that I was told, and then in some applications it was actually quite a bit above that, as some websites found. But there were even slight IPC regressions with Tiger Lake sometimes. So this to me comes off as if I said a number, someone would say it's wrong because of this, when in reality, you guys just got to remember that Raptor Lake is a minor update, although better than, you know, the old Intel era of 5% gains a year. It's better than that, but it is like Willow Cove over Sunny Cove. A big part of it is just the clock speeds and the overall performance per watt at higher clock speeds. It is not that the big cores have some massive IPC increase. Now, like I said, though, Raptor Cove's P-cores do have higher clocks than Alder Lake, but no one expects a major clock speed advantage over Zen 4, especially when it comes to all-core boost clocks. I've already alluded to the fact that I think Zen 4 could have 5.8 gigahertz, possibly even a little higher SKUs. I do not believe we're going to see any 6 gigahertz Raptor Lake products or something. If I'm wrong, hey, I will be wrong then for sure, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if Raptor Cove actually maxed out around 5.7 gigahertz, guys. It's on the same node as Alder Lake. People will point to the i9-12900KS and say, but that hits 5.5, and I'd say, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, that's also on the same node. So I don't see it as having an advantage. If anything, I just think Intel will hit the same boost clocks and probably have lower all-core, or all-big core, should I say, boost clocks. And then there's Gracemont Plus, so the little cores are clocked a bit faster than Raptor Lake, though, and they also have a bit more L2. I don't know what Intel will call them, but I would go as far as to say it's fair to call this Gracemont Plus. It is not the same Gracemont. And I then stand by my overall recent estimates, although they're not that recent anymore, it's months ago already, of a plus 8 to 15% single-threaded increase over Alder Lake. Generally speaking, back then, that was referencing the i9-12900K, not the KS, to be fair. So I guess, you know, if you look at that 8 to 15%, it'll depend on that. But, you know, again, we're talking probably, in most applications, low single-digit IPC increase. And then you're talking about, I mean, like a 5% clock speed increase or something at most. The single-threaded increase isn't going to be that much higher than Alder Lake. The higher multi-threading comes from the fact that the big cores are, of course, still that, you know, 8 to 15% better, and then it's doubling little cores. But again, I do have to point out that in some applications, I think people will be disappointed because it relies on the little cores so much, and because not every application is Cinebench. All right. Raptor Lake is on LGA 1800. I guess I can't 100% promise they'll call it that, but we've already seen covers that say 17XX/18XX. And that's because actually in the existing LGA 1700 socket, there are pins for 1800, and that's because Intel planned ahead for more power delivery to Raptor Lake, which brings me to this point. Look, guys, Raptor Lake is going to bring higher performance per watt than Alder Lake. I've seen some people argue with me like I don't know that. I said that in my initial leak, guys. I'm aware. Having said that, they are putting more pins in there for a reason. It's probably for a bit more I/O, but it's almost always. It is not about the complexity of the die. If you ask anyone who knows what they're talking about, and I even have a link to an article that talks about this specifically, it's about delivering more power. So I do believe the top Raptor Lake SKUs will likely boost to use more energy than Alder Lake. Even if the P1 and P2 is technically the same, I think you're going to see average power consumption levels of the top model when it's using all 24 cores higher than Alder Lake. And that does mean that I think Zen 4 is going to have a massive efficiency advantage. Now, Z790 has been mentioned to me by multiple sources. And I know that H770 and B760 are planned to launch in January around CES. And I guess the other good thing I'll say about Raptor Lake is I have no reason to believe that Intel is going to dramatically increase cost per SKU over Alder Lake. Expect roughly the same pricing as their predecessors for most models. And that's to say that because it's the i9 is a Halo product, Intel tends to play around with raising those prices from time to time. But generally speaking, I think you can expect the i5s to be between, well, what you would expect, around $400 or more dollars. You know, at launch, they might announce it for $500, but it'll drop right away. And I expect the i5s, which is most important because I think that's Intel's greatest advantage in the lineup with Raptor Lake, to be around $300 once everything stabilizes. So overall, my assessment of the upcoming situation between AMD and Intel's competition will be that, well, the fanboys are going to quibble over losses here and there. Effectively, Raptor Lake and Zen 4 are going to be very close overall in performance. Sometimes Raptor Lake will win, sometimes Raphael's going to win, and possibly even trading blows in both multi-threading and single-threading. However, I just have to point out Zen 4 has a massive efficiency advantage, but in some ways this is offset by the fact that Intel has a pricing advantage with sub $400 SKUs. My overall point really is that who launches first is important, and I think everyone has been expecting Raptor Lake to launch before Zen 4, but now we need to talk about that. Raptor Lake release dates. So 2022 quarter 4 is when Raptor Lake H and HX mobile launches. These are the high core count, highly clocked, like 65 to 95 watt SKUs. With Alder Lake, they've repackaged even the desktop model, similar to what AMD's doing with Raphael and Dragon Range. So this, to me, seems like they want to get these out into mobile earlier than the other chips because they want this out before, frankly, Dragon Range comes out on mobile and at the same power consumption crushes it in performance because it just has a big node advantage. And then we get Raptor Lake Enthusiast Desktop, honestly, around the same time, maybe even slightly before. But here's the thing. I'm telling you guys, Raptor Lake Enthusiast Desktop, the K SKUs, these were planned for quarter 3. In fact, I was hearing that Intel was going to try to get them out in August if they could. But at this point, I'm expecting a paper launch in quarter 3. And then some sources think it'll slip to late quarter 4. This is something that's been a lot of consternation that really pushed me to bring this video out. But let's put it this way. Right now, what Intel is doing is telling their partners that they're going to launch around September, October. But when you press them on it, they say it might just be a paper launch, and we might even paper launch in October. And I have other sources that have their contacts telling them that, honestly, this might not come out until December. And I even have a couple people that think it could slip into next year. So generally speaking, I just would say Raptor Lake's launching quarter 4 with an asterisk. Might they paper launch something in September, or even announce it most likely in September to act like it's coming out then? Yes, but I would take a quarter 3 Raptor Lake launch the same way you guys all are taking the, in quotes, quarter 1 Alchemist launch. Was it really quarter 1, guys? I don't think so. And then in quarter 1, we will get the non-K desktop Raptor Lake. That's when you're finally hopefully going to see that i5 6 Plus 4 non-K models. And I want to be clear, these were supposed to launch in quarter 4. The people I've been talking to say no, Intel has adjusted guidance. So this is already officially even acknowledged by Intel slipped a quarter. And then around that is supposed to be Raptor Lake UNP. This is the traditional mobility SKUs, 2 plus 8 and 6 plus 8 models with bigger integrated graphics. The thing, though, again, with this is, Alder Lake took a while to actually get into laptops after they, in quotes, launched it. So I don't know. This, to me, the way I would put it is, what Intel wanted to do was launch enthusiast products in quarter 3 of this year and then launch everything else by the end of quarter 4 with a few mobile products launching in January. It's now honestly starting to sound like Raptor Lake's going to launch at the exact same time, if not slightly later than Zen 4, in that their mobility products are de facto going to launch after Phoenix, which just isn't good. And yeah, so that's the consensus, that we're going to probably see a paper launch right before fall, but that the real Raptor Lake volume isn't going to hit until December, and OEMs talk to me like this is a 2023 product. But that's actually the best of it. I want to talk about Intel's other upcoming products that come out later. So first of all, let's go over Meteor Lake. This is launching to the LGA 2551 platform with a socket that is only slightly bigger than Alder Lake's socket despite the higher pin count. And I actually have pictures confirming it. I've been given the okay to share one of them showing the pins configuration for LGA 2551, and I've manipulated it and moved around a few things with the okay of my source to protect that person. So yeah, this is real. It is not LGA 1800. That's Raptor Lake. This is what Meteor Lake will use, and I expect Meteor Lake to bring a 12 to 21% IPC increase with Redwood Cove over Raptor Cove. Now, this is the current estimate, and I apologize for the huge range, but I'm 100% sure it's a bigger uplift than Raptor Cove over Golden Cove. This is not like Tiger Lake, guys. This is intended to be a big increase. And for those that doubt this is possible, well, when you see the release dates, it becomes more believable. The other thing is it comes with clock speed regressions. This is universal. I don't expect it to be this kind of regressions we saw with Ice Lake next to Comet Lake, right? So if you will all remember, Comet Lake pretty much clocked up to like, I don't know, I think it was like 5.2, 5.3 gigahertz on desktop. They had mobile chips that hit 5 gigahertz. I own one. And then Ice Lake, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world that we've seen in the past, but it was pretty bad. It had trouble getting to 4 gigahertz. So we're talking like 20% worse clocks than Comet Lake, but it had IPC that basically made it a wash. That's not what I'm expecting with Meteor Lake, but it's not going to be like Tiger Lake either, where Tiger Lake did eventually hit 5 gigahertz and was only like 5 to 10% lower clocks than Comet Lake. So overall, without putting an official number on it, if you put a gun up to my head, I would say I expect Meteor Lake to bring clock speeds that are probably between, I don't know, 4.2 to 4.8 gigahertz, or maybe just touching 5-ish, but they're not going to be above 5 gigahertz like Raptor Lake. It'll be enough that Meteor Lake products will be higher performance than Raptor Lake for sure per core, but they're not going to be as good as what like Tiger Lake was relative to Comet Lake. And it comes with Crestmont, the new little core architecture. I can't confirm its performance or core count just yet, but I can say that as previously leaked, Meteor Lake comes with integrated accelerators like a VPU or neural engine. Watch that past video if you want to know what I believe Intel will use it for. And although I can't confirm the performance or top core count of all models with the little cores yet, I can say that I do know there are mobility Meteor Lake models with 2+8 and 6+8 configurations. And from what it's sounding like, desktop Meteor Lake is probably going to be 8+16. Now, this is not 100% confirmed. Don't kill me if it ends up being different, but that is pretty much what I'm hearing at this point. It's 8+16. In other words, Meteor Lake brings a decent IPC increase for the big cores. It brings new accelerators, and it also brings a better little core architecture to the little cores, but no increases in core count over Raptor Lake are really expected. And so really though, I think this is the key. You should think of Meteor Lake in mobile with Raptor Lake like the Ice Lake, Comet Lake era that I've already touched on. You see, Raptor Lake is going to into mid and probably even into late 2022 or 2023, I'm sorry, be the overwhelming majority of the volume. In fact, near the beginning of the year, I think it's going to be like at least in 8-to-1 ratio and how much Raptor Lake Mobile is made versus Meteor Lake. And so what you're going to see is Meteor Lake go in premium thin and lights again, and maybe some boutique gaming builds that want the best CPU they can get out of Intel that's just a hair better than Raptor Lake, and they're willing to pay for it. Over time, yields should improve. More Meteor Lake should be made relative to Raptor Lake. Again, similar to Ice Lake versus Comet Lake, and this will be better than that era. Meteor Lake will be more abundant than Ice Lake was eventually, but that's how you should think of this until they can get it working well enough to get to desktop. But that's the thing here. Let's get to the launch dates. Meteor Lake was supposed to launch at the beginning of next year as a combination with Raptor Lake to compete with Phoenix, Dragon Range, and Mendocino. Instead, it seems to be just clearly launching later than all of those, to the point that I'm not even sure mid-2023 is fair. Like, they're going to try to launch it in June, but knowing Intel, I don't know, it could be July, guys. It could just be a Q3 product. And desktop that was meant to launch mid-next year, hopefully right after Zen 4, if they could pull it off. No, this is looking like a reluctant Zen 5 competitor. Meteor Lake was intended with Redwood Cove. I mean, I leaked this thing in 2020, guys. It was intended to be a Zen 4 competitor, and even though Zen 4 has been delayed, it's ending up a Zen 5 competitor, and one with gimped clock speeds probably. So I'm not... Look, it's a big increase. That amount of IPC, these kinds of enhancements, accelerators, are nothing to sneeze at, but AMD's already adding accelerators to Zen 4, and they certainly have a lot of them in Zen 5 from what I hear. So it's starting to fight the last war. And then we get into Arrow Lake. Now, Arrow Lake, I have heard from two sources, one a very long time ago, and now finally from another one now, that it is indeed what I think was in a mysterious Reddit leak, 8 big cores and 32 little cores, and I have been told it's being made on the 20 angstrom architecture, which I think Intel's basically alluded to publicly anyways. It is too early for me to comment on exact performance increases yet, but Lion Cove, as longtime fans of the channel may remember, is one of the architectures I named as being connected to the fabled Royal Core project under Jim Keller. And the funny thing is, to this day, even though it isn't something Intel really has publicly acknowledged yet, Royal Core, that name is mentioned to me by numerous sources, even some new ones I get to, that this was the big project by Jim Keller. Now, the funny thing is this was initially told to me in reference to actually Lunar Lake and Nova Lake, but it actually another lake that isn't public yet. But it has become more and more clear over time that Lion Cove was also being referenced to something called Arrow Lake, and I know a bit more information about it, so I can't say what state Lion Cove will be in once Arrow Lake finally launches years from now, but this is one that people should expect as a real big one. This is one of the first architectures to actually utilize something that was supposedly designed from the ground up by Jim Keller with many new features. And I have also been tipped off then that Arrow Lake uses a new little core architecture with massive changes over Crestmont as well. It's not just another standard tick or talk. It's both. It's a big increase. And I believe rumors call this Skymont, although I personally don't believe I've had that codename referenced to me, but I don't doubt it at all. And this is expected to be compatible with LGA 2551. I'm going to be honest, I expect this thing to use a boatload of energy, or at least Intel's clearly planning for that to happen. And I do expect it to launch in the second half of 2024, which again, guys, let's keep track of what's going on here. Zen 4 launches this fall. Zen 4 with Vcache should launch early to mid next year. Zen 5 should launch at the very end of 2023. And that means that Zen 6 could potentially be launching a year after that, right next to Arrow Lake. So as impressive as Arrow Lake sounds, I think Zen 5 is going to be a huge deal, and I have no reason to doubt Zen 6. And all right, now I actually want to move on to something that's not CPU related and isn't chronological, but I felt it best to talk about the CPUs first. Let me update you guys on when Alchemist is coming out, as this kind of starts tying into the final theme of the video. It generally seems like Intel is planning to dump a lot of their ARC volume into OEM channels at the beginning of Q3 with a limited do-it-yourself launch of that limited edition card, which I now have renders of that you guys can look at. This super cool looking version of the reference models. This is a card that I believe is possibly going to be the model they sell to do it yourself, as multiple AIBs are bugging out from supporting Alchemist at this point. And I think that standard cooler we've seen is probably more so for OEMs. Can't say for sure, honestly, that original cooler I launched for Alchemist, remember that was a year ago. I think actually over a year ago that I had those pictures. And so who knows if they're just going to completely replace it with this flashier card. But what I'm being told is around the end of June or later, you're going to get high-end OEM desktop launch. Now, I say high-end OEM because I can only confirm what Intel's promising to OEMs, and I just have to always doubt when they'll actually launch anything to the do-it-yourself market at this point. And then in July, August is when they're supposed to have the low-end OEM, and it was supposed to launch first. So again, slipping. It is slipping back at least a full quarter. One might argue, actually, it's missed the launch date by 2 quarters now. And then low-end mobile, decent availability to OEMs. And this is hilarious because if you were to ask Intel in an investor meeting now, I'm sure they would say, oh, we've already launched low-end Alchemist to mobility platforms. OEMs have their own date for when low-end mobile launches, even though it's supposed to technically be out, guys. So what I would take that to mean is that late July is when you're actually really going to be able to for sure buy plenty of laptops with low-end Alchemist. And so there you go. Alchemist is a product that, if we're being honest, should have launched by the middle or end of 2021, and instead it is launching a full year later than expected, and almost 2 years later than when I first leaked the specs of A780. Well, so there you go. Hopefully now you all understand where I was coming from with my initial points at the beginning of this video. Look, if you were to look at these architectures, gen-over-gen increases, in a vacuum without looking at release dates, you would go, oh wow, Alder Lake doubles Rocket Lake performance at about the same or honestly even less power. Oh wow, the next gen Raptor Lake on the same socket comes out and it's going to bring a 40% more multi-threading, around 10% more single-threading. That's another fantastic generation. And then Meteor Lake comes out with another big IPC increase and another big, decent multi-threading increase stemming from that initial big core increase and new little cores. Wow. And then Arrow Lake comes out doubling little cores with a new little core architecture again and a massive IPC increase for the big cores. This just looks like a haymaker followed by a haymaker followed by a haymaker. Yes, but Arrow Lake was designed by Jim Keller to compete with Zen 5, not to compete with Zen 6. And that is an issue. It may have special features, it may have new accelerators, but Zen 5 is going to have accelerators as well. Intel could be stuck fighting the last war. If Raptor Lake is already kind of slipping to late 2022 instead of mid to late summer 2022, and then I see Meteor Lake seems to basically be coming out half a year late instead of 1 or 2 quarters, and then Arrow Lake's coming out a full year late, who's to say everything after that isn't going to have these rolling delays cause some products to be 2 years late again? Intel, where is Ponte Vecchio? Why did I know Alchemist specs 2 years before it came out? Get your act together. And just to hit home at how bad I'm not promising, but worried it could get for Intel, I point to Emerald Rapids. Sapphire Rapids isn't even out yet, and Intel is publicly saying Emerald Rapids is 2023. Now, I have already leaked what Emerald Rapids is. To this day, nothing really changes. I'm told it's up to 64 cores. They should probably be Raptor Cove or probably a Raptor Cove Plus core. So what you're looking at is a modest core count increase, very small there, and then a modest single threading and multi-threading increase per core from the new architecture. So it's probably going to be 20%-ish, 25% better than Sapphire Rapids. If Sapphire Rapids launched against Milan and then Emerald Rapids was launching against Milan X, that would be great. But instead, it seems to be coming out at least a full year late, to the point that I'm told it is the second half of 2023 it's launching. And that Turin Zen 5 that I've already leaked goes up to at least 256 cores, with not Zen 4 performance per core, but Zen 5 performance per core. Supposed to come out the first half of 2024, and I've already alluded to the fact that there's a chance they may even be able to ship it to a couple special customers at the very end of 2023. I don't know. Why would I believe Emerald Rapids is even coming out the second half of next year? Everything keeps getting delayed for Intel. And I gotta say, guys, and it seems inevitable, honestly, at this point, that it will happen for at least half a year, even if Emerald Rapids comes first, I think it's going to have to contend with Turin a little bit. You're talking about 64 last-gen cores versus 256 next-gen cores. That's going to be worse than 28 14-nanometer Intel cores versus Rome. And most people didn't think, including me, it would ever get worse than that. And then AMD brought out a 64-core Milan that basically was triple the efficiency of anything Intel had in server. Turin versus Emerald Rapids, I would estimate that to be closer to like 5 times the efficiency per socket. That would be catastrophic. And so this is all I'm saying. This is what I want to end the video on. Look, I'm wearing an Intel shirt. I own an Alder Lake system right here. I'm not an Intel hater. My laptop's Intel. I own actually mostly Intel products. But the fact of the matter is, Intel, if you do not learn how to launch things on time, then I'm just going to have to say it. Alder Lake is starting to not look like a return to form. It's looking like a dead cat bounce. So that's just gonna about do it for this video. I did get a little passionate there at the end, it looks like, but I'm sorry. This is just important to consumers. I'm already being told consistently behind the scenes that AMD wants to become a premium brand, and some of that's understandable. They don't have their own foundries, so they don't have the kind of capacity advantages Intel has. They kind of have to become a premium brand eventually because they can't make as many chips as Intel. But at the end of the day, they don't have to milk super hard unless Intel lets them. And it's just starting to seriously worry me. Look, Raptor Lake sounds great. I think it will possibly be the gaming champion, but is it going to be by any appreciable amount when every CPU under the sun is running all games above 200 hertz and AMD has a better platform that costs less, that has long-term compatibility? So if you get a Zen 5 or Zen 4 system, you can upgrade to Zen 5 or Zen 6. Whereas if you get a Raptor Lake system, you're just having to buy hotter cooling and you're not upgrading to Meteor Lake. I don't know. From where I'm sitting, it seems like Zen 4 already has the overall advantage in terms of being a good product. It's not just about winning Cinebench, which isn't even a real app. It's about being a good product that brings the right amounts of performance for the right price on the right platform. And Intel's inability to execute is just making me think that no matter what they bring to the table, it just might be a few years too late. But you know what? That's all I've really got to say left about it. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know about the other upcoming products I have coming, like that upcoming AMD video about their mobility SKUs launching early next year, then make sure you subscribe to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and ring the bell button. If you have the extra money, please support us on Patreon. We cannot do this without our patrons. A new die shrink came out today that's basically a bonus broken silicon looking at the performance of gaming handhelds. I think anyone who enjoys the podcast on Moore's Law is Dead will love that one. It's kind of a special episode. And then, of course, as always, even if I deliver bad news, doesn't mean you shouldn't support our sponsors as well, like Vite Ramen. They've been supporting this channel for a long time, and they got a lot of cool new products that I think you should check out if you want an easy snack this summer. But that's it. That's just going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching.